Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kate Simmons Tillotson, coming to you from my home office in Limerick. Thank you so much for joining us and making the time, and I hope everyone is at home and in a comfy chair, because we're so looking forward to this interview. I'd first like to thank our presenting sponsors, Hub International and Bernstein Schur. We are so appreciative of the support that they're giving us to bring this to you and to support our local journalism. I'd also like to thank our Like a Boss series sponsors, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, JP Morgan Chase, Vistage, and Coffee by Design. And I know we all wish we could have a really hot cup of Coffee by Design coffee right now. Before we talk with Lisa and Kristen, I'd like to introduce Peter Fendler of Hub International. Hub is the 5th largest insurance broker in the world. They have deep roots in the Maine business community, and we are especially grateful to them for their help that they always give us at the Press Herald. And on to you, Peter.
Thanks, Kate. Hi, everybody, for the 4th week in a row. I have to count these things out now because I feel like I'm in some sort of surreal version of the movie Groundhog Day. Like if I don't look at the calendar, I don't know what day of the week it is anymore.
Exactly.
On behalf of the whole Hub team, we hope that you're all enjoying and coping with the extended stay-at-home situation you have, and hope that your businesses and personal lives are enduring the stress. We also want to thank the Press Herald for hosting these important conversations and all the great reporting they're doing to keep us current. And finally, I'd like to thank Kristen and the Good Shepherd Food Bank for the fantastic work they do and recognize all your efforts in what must be an incredibly demanding time. We hope that you're enjoying this series and invite you to have a conversation with us when life returns back to the new norm. We have some interesting people that you can talk to at our office as well. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Kate. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Now I'd like to introduce one of our friends from Bernstein Schur, Nelson Toner. Take it away, Nelson.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nelson Toner. I'm a tax and estate planning attorney at Bernstein Schur. My firm is very happy to sponsor the Like a Boss series. We'd like to thank the Portland Press Herald for this important opportunity to hear from local business and community leaders. Today's program features Kristen Miale from the Good Shepherd Food Bank, which should be a very important topic and a great conversation. As an attorney who regularly works with and advises nonprofit organizations, I'm especially interested in hearing Kristen's comments about operating a food bank during this pandemic and trying to help our community's most vulnerable persons. So with that, I'll turn it back over and we'll start our program.
Nelson, thank you. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the publisher and CEO of Masthead Maine, Lisa DeSisto, and the CEO of Good Shepherd Food Bank, Kristen Miale. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Kate. Welcome, Kristen. Thank you, Peter and Nelson. And as always, we are so appreciative of the support of our sponsors, and your investment in us helps us to continue the journalism that we are producing every day. So thank you again. Kristen, we are so happy that you could be with us today because we can only imagine the pressure that you're under for your time. And I can tell you that as we've done exit surveys in our Like a Boss live events, your name is always at the top of the list of people that they would like to hear from. So I think it's the timing just worked out perfectly because we need to get some visibility into what's happening at the Good Shepherd Food Bank.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yes, and we read in the paper today in the Press Herald that the state's unemployment rate has gone up. 1 in 7 Mainers have applied for unemployment. So we know that that has such an impact on what's on Mainers' need for food, and you are right at the center of it. So before we go into how you've responded and really changed your whole distribution model and focus, why don't you just give all of our guests or our attendees kind of an overview of the Good Shepherd Food Bank, because it is a vast food network throughout the state.
Yeah, thank you. So Good Shepherd Food Bank, we operate essentially as a grocery store for hundreds of nonprofit organizations around the state. So our job as the food bank is to get food to these community-based programs so that they can do their work. So our partners include community food pantries, school programs, healthcare organizations, senior centers, all sorts of community-based partners who are really on the front lines, making sure their community members get the food that they need to live healthy, productive lives. And over the past 10 years, our work has really changed a lot as we've really shifted our focus on not just making sure people get food, but making sure people have access to the healthy food that they need to thrive. And so our model with our partners has moved to more than 60% of the food we normally distribute is perishable. So it's fresh produce, it's fresh protein, those healthier foods that oftentimes are too expensive for people to purchase. We also have made our model more efficient, where 40% of the food we don't even touch. We just facilitate that food moving from food donors, retailers to our partners. And then our partners have done an amazing job shifting how they distribute that food to allowing client choice. So many food pantries today almost look like mini grocery stores where people can go in and product is visible and people can go around and choose the foods that they want for their family. So we've been really proud to have made those changes to improve the experience for patrons, as well as to improve the health and nutrition of the food that we're giving out. Last year, our network, we've over 600 partners. We distributed over 25 million meals across the entire state of Maine, and we estimate we serve about 178,000 people every year. And that was all before
Right.
crisis hit.
Right. And I think it's important for people to understand what your sort of normal operating model looks like. Now, if you can transition to how you've had to pivot to really accommodate this unprecedented demand.
Yeah. So, when this crisis really started to unfold in mid-March, I think within really the first week, we recognized that really our whole model needed to be turned on its head. Our partners had to comply with safe distancing. We were incredibly concerned about the health of both the patrons and the volunteers. Many people we serve, and certainly many people who work at the food pantries, are senior citizens. And many patrons and again, seniors are in those high-risk categories of having some underlying health conditions. So we were really concerned with their ability to be able to distribute food safely. So we wanted to shift to a model where we were able to provide pre-packed boxes of food so that our partners could not have to use as many volunteers and not have to have their volunteers spend as much time, in small spaces packing up food for their patrons. Our partners, likewise, they moved so fast. They quickly moved to coming up with drive-through food pantry distributions, appointment only. Doing more than half of our partners are now doing home deliveries.
Oh, wow.
I know it's amazing what they've been able to do. But I think one of the biggest shifts that has been hard is also because of the safe distancing and having to move to these pre-packed boxes and low touch models. It's been really challenging to be able to distribute as much perishable food because of obviously the food safety concerns. And so the demand for shelf stable product just went through the roof. And again, that's not normally the product that we have on hand. So we immediately started buying a lot of food, which is new for us. And again, normally 70% of the food we distribute is donated food. Those donations are down by about 50% because obviously there's no excess food available. And most of the donated food that's coming in is perishable. So to put it in perspective, normally over the course of a year, we'll spend about $1.5 million buying food to supplement what we distribute. In the past 2 weeks, we have allocated over $2 million to buy shelf stable food. And we're really struggling to keep up. Our biggest concern is not having enough shelf stable food. We've been able to partner with LL Bean, which has been fabulous because they've been able to give us the necessary manpower to be able to pack that food into boxes. They've already packed over 15,000 emergency food boxes that we've distributed. So it's really been It's been fabulous, but it's definitely been stressful. And I will say, to me so far, the hardest time was in those first few weeks while we were trying to get ready to start packing those boxes. We needed to wait to get enough volume of shelf-stable food so that we could pack kind of a variety box. And so we ended up pulling all of the shelf-stable food we had available to our partners for about a week to 2 weeks while we were able to build up the inventory to build the boxes. And there was a lot of anxiety, understandably, from our partners saying, where's the shelf-stable food?
Yeah.
I had to say, just, it's coming, wait, which is a horrible thing to have to say to your partners who are out there on the front lines.
So one of the questions that we got repeatedly from our attendees today is, are you going to run out of food? What does the supply chain look like for you?
Yeah. Unfortunately, this picture behind me is a stock photo. I'm actually in my office at the food bank, and I wish our warehouse looked like what's behind me right now. We actually ran out of shelf-stable food this week. We do have more coming. We've placed orders. They're just delayed. But we are out of shelf-stable food right now. So this week we started handing out, we ordered 15,000 Hannaford gift cards. The first group batch of those went out yesterday and tomorrow, and all next week we'll be distributing Hannaford gift cards. We are hoping by next week, we are expecting more truckloads of that product to come in, and we'll start building boxes again for the following week. But it's definitely a very precarious situation.
Yeah. But right now that looks to be short term, correct? Just in terms of the lack of food.
That's what we're hearing. Yeah, and it's one of the things that's been great is we've been talking with Hannaford all the time, as well as Feeding America, who's the umbrella organization for all the food banks around the country. Every other food bank is in the same situation we are. And what we're being told is manufacturers, they have started to pivot. They started to focus on core products. We should start to see a little bit the food supply chain open up a little bit. I know personally, I went to the grocery store and there was a lot more pasta than before. So I'm hoping that's a good sign that we'll start seeing those supply chains open up. And we've been assured we have enough food here in the country. It's just getting it out as quickly as possible.
Right. So let's talk about what are your most urgent needs. We saw again in the Press Herald today that the Herald Alfond Foundation gave you a donation of $1 million. So put that in perspective of what you're really going to need to operate for the year, and then kind of lead into what is it that you need from the community.
Sure. So, we are immense gratitude to Herald Alfond Foundation for this incredibly generous gift, and really for the outpouring of support that we've received from Mainers all across the state. We started calculating how much we think this is going to cost us, because again, when we knew we needed more shelf-stable food, it's tempting to just spend every dollar you have and buy all the food you need. But we started to think about, okay, well, wait, how long do we think this is going to last? And let's start putting some numbers behind this. Because in addition to the increase in food costs, we also have had a significant increase in our labor costs. I mentioned that before, 40% of our food we didn't even handle. We just managed that donation. Well, those donations really have dried up. We're now handling 75% of our food. So we've had to employ temporary labor. We obviously have a lot of overtime. We are paying hazard pay to all of our frontline workers. So we started looking at how long we think these retail donations might stay declined for, as well as what do we think the long-term impact on food insecurity is going to be, seeing what the unemployment rate is looking like. And we used a model that kind of compared how unemployment impacted food insecurity through the Great Recession. So we're estimating that food insecurity is going to grow by about 40% across the state. And taking that into account, plus the impact on our labor, we estimate that the total 6-month cost to the food bank will be $6.3 million on top of our additional budget. So it's about 150% increase. So we're about halfway there in terms of how much money we've raised for the COVID response. But
wow.
That means we have another half to go. And of course, we're concerned, even beyond that 6-month period. The food bank relies almost exclusively on the generosity of Mainers to operate. And they're being incredibly generous now. but what's going to be the long-term economic impact across the board? And what's that fundraising campaign, this holiday season going to look like, knowing what's happening right now?
Yeah, because there are so many needs
Mm-hmm.
in so many different places. But if the food insecurity factor is 40%, does that mean, if I have my data right, that we're going from 13% of Mainers to 18%? Is that right?
That's what we're estimating. That's our best guess right now. Yeah, which is, 13% was already too high. We were already
Right.
in the country to begin with. And, and now to see it up to 18% is just staggering. And that, we're hearing that from our partners. They're saying they're seeing people at their food pantries that they've never seen before. New families, and most of them, they're hearing is due to job loss. And one thing that to me is heartbreaking is hearing from our partners that some of these people who've never sought out assistance before are showing up and they're apologizing, saying,
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry I have to be here, and our partners, who are just the kindest people I know, are saying, don't apologize. We're here for you. This is what we do.
Right. So, what else can people do? I know Strawberry popped in the chat the link for people to make contributions. What are other things that you need?
Yeah. So obviously, for the food bank, because we're buying so much food, we do need monetary contributions. We also, though, we're really encouraging people to support their local food pantries as well. We could not do this work without our network of partners, and they are doing Herculean efforts across the state. We are giving out all of our food to our partners for free right now, so there are no fees to our agencies. We've also just released $400,000 worth of grants and direct funding support for our partners to help them. But there are going to be needs beyond what we can do. And so on our website, we have a link to all of our partners. You can sort it by town, and you can get contact information. Please call up your community food access program. Find out if they need more volunteers. Do they need gas cards for volunteers? They may need cleaning supplies, all sorts of unique needs all across the state. And so people always say, do I donate to the food bank or the food pantry? And my answer is both, please.
Yeah. That certainly makes a lot of sense. You told me that you saw the arrival of a multitude of checks for $1,200. What's that all about?
Yeah, that was just, we started about, it was a few days ago. Again, I'm losing track of time as well. We start right when the stimulus checks started going out, we started getting $1,200 donations, and with people writing notes saying, I don't need this as much as others. And knowing that there was an income cap, of who got those stimulus checks, these are, $1,200 is a lot of money.
Right.
For somebody who's, making, $50,000, $60,000 a year and maybe has been laid off or home with kids. I mean, to give that to us is just unbelievably generous.
You already mentioned your relationship with Hannaford, which we know they are just a critical supporter of the Good Shepherd Food Bank and have been for as long as I can remember. And then how LL Bean retooled their warehouse to be a food distribution center. Any other businesses that have lent a hand to you?
Yeah, and I was saying there's too many to mention, but definitely some of our biggest support has come from. We've also had Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, New Balance, Maine Credit Union League, who's been a longtime supporter of the Food Pantry Network for decades, Maine Bankers Association, Bank of America, Martins Point, Great Diamond Partners, AmeriMaine. Some have been really creative, which has been fun. Allagash and Geary's are supporting us with some new brews that are out. And if you purchase the new brews, they're sending some money to us and some partners. The Portland sports teams are all doing a virtual food drive. They're calling it Fans for Food. So we appreciate the support of all kinds, and we always appreciate when people have a little bit of fun while they're doing it too.
Yeah, well, if we have to drink beer to help you, we will do it. We will do that. A couple of questions about students and how are you supporting student hunger while the schools are closed? And can you look into the summer too? I think everyone's really concerned about the kids over the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel that the school programs have been one of the bright spots in this. Fortunately, the USDA very quickly waived so many of the requirements around school meals all across the country, which made states, gave them immense flexibility with what they could do. The Department of Education just was on that so fast, and they did a phenomenal job very quickly working with school districts to find creative ways to get school meals out there. So school meals are still being provided, oftentimes breakfast and lunch plus extra groceries. What we've seen is a lot of our school pantries, which operate, separate from the school lunch program, but they've actually kind of combined to help with distribution. And so the school lunch program is still providing the lunches. Sometimes it's the school bus drivers who are actually doing the routes, but instead of picking up kids, they're dropping off food. And then they're also delivering the food from our school pantries and our backpack programs at the same time. So great partnerships being formed at the local level, people being incredibly innovative. We've also seen some of our school programs have also opened up, and they're really serving the entire community. So we've heard from Boys and Girls Club in Augusta. They normally do about 25 meals a day, 5 days a week for their kids. They've now opened up. They're doing 250 meals a day now, 7 days a week.
Wow.
Boys and Girls Club in Southern Maine, they started serving families. The first day of the week, they did 50 families. By the end of the week, they were doing over 100 families. Just unbelievable. The Hamden Food Cupboard, I'm sorry, I'm grabbing my notes at the same time. They do a backpack program for us. The last day of school, they were doing 90 backpacks for kids. They're now combining, working with the school buses, delivering the school meals. They're now doing 144 backpacks on top every week. And that one I think is great. That one, the school bus driver is also delivering homework.
Yeah.
I don't know if kids want that.
Yeah,
but...
can I take the lunch, but maybe leave the homework? I do think it's amazing how people have just been so innovative and nimble and retooling all their logistics to make sure the volume is met. So that's remarkable. Yeah. So I want to talk about, because Like a Boss is really about leadership. So we're going to get to some. How are you coping, and what examples are you setting for your staff in a second? But I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about your take on the long-term outlook for hunger in Maine, because it feels like many people are experiencing for the first time with our experience at grocery stores what it's like to really feel anxiety over food and obtaining food.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And we are, I'm hopeful that we might be able to take this experience and build more greater empathy that will be a catalyst really for addressing hunger more systemically when we're on the other side of this. I think many of us for the first time, have never had to experience waiting in line in order to get food, of being maybe a little stressed while you're waiting in line because you don't know when you get to the front of the line if there's going to be food left, and that's the normal for people who are living with hunger, of having
right.
If you've ever visited one of our partners, usually the lines start queuing 2 hours before they even open their doors. And so that's every day for people living with hunger. And hopefully enough of us have experienced even a tiny glimpse of what that stress feels like, and recognize that that is not how people should be getting food. Certainly not in this day and age, and not in Maine, not in America. This just isn't right. And everybody deserves reliable access to healthy food.
For sure. I know one of the things that we've experienced personally here in my family is we're so much more cognizant of using everything and cutting down on food waste. And that was also a question that was submitted about, are there lessons to come out of this? Like I used to waste paper towels like you couldn't believe. It was sort of one of my guilty pleasures. And we haven't had paper towels in probably a month, and we're doing fine. My husband commented on how our trash, he took the trash out the other day, and he's like, it's half of what it normally is, yet we're here all the time. So those are lessons that we're going to take with us.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. And I know, I know our partners, our food boxes, we're trying to have a variety as best we can, but unfortunately we're only able to put in them what we're able to get. We've been inundated with dried peas and dried beans, which are really healthy and you can do a lot with. So we've been putting a lot of them in, and we are hearing from our partners saying enough of the dried beans.
Yeah.
But we're trying to send out recipes but here's all the different things you can do with them. And
Right.
I wish we could have, every variety of food possible in these boxes, but we're only able to put in what we can get. So we're all having to be a little bit more creative these days.
So let's talk about you and about how, this is such an urgent problem. I mean, how difficult is it for you to walk away every day? But we all know how important it is to strike a balance, because it's certainly a marathon, and your own physical and mental health are really important to take care of, as well as that of your staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been saying that to our staff from day one, is we know this is not a 2-week problem or even a 2-month problem. So we need our staff to stay healthy. I mean, that is critical. So we certainly have made a lot of changes here at our warehouse to help our staff, with safe distancing, and they're wearing masks and all of that. But also reminding them they need to take care of themselves. So for me, I try to model that myself. I think how my staff sees me, what I'm doing over these weeks, I think is really important. So one is I am here every single day. A lot of my job I could do from home, but I just feel that if I'm asking many of my staff to come into work, then I need to be here too. So I've been here every day. But I also make sure I'm here at my regular time. I'm not coming in at 6 a.m. I'm not coming in at 7 a.m. I am waking up. I'm still doing my regular exercise. That for me, that's my mental health. I'm eating a healthy breakfast, and then I come into work and I do my full day, and then I'm going home. It definitely has been longer hours than normal, for sure. But for me, I stop working at 8 o'clock every night, which again, I know is still a long day, but I take a break to have dinner with my kids. It's the only really time I see them. And then I'll go and do a few more hours on email, but my staff will not be getting emails from me at 10 o'clock at night, and I don't want emails from them at 10 o'clock at night. You need some downtime. You need to hang with your family. You need to go to bed, get a good night's sleep, because tomorrow we got to get up and do it all over again.
Yeah, so true. It's just so important to stay refreshed, in every aspect. So every time we've done this, we get the same question. I have to look back and see who it's from. But what have you learned about yourself during this pandemic? It's a good question.
It's a really good question. That's a good question. I think I would say actually I've learned that I've never been one of those people where my whole life is my job. And I've learned that I don't think I could ever be that person. Right now, really everything in my life is my job. It's like, because it's just all because it needs to be right now. And my kids are older, and my husband thankfully works from home. So he's got the home front down. So it's allowing me to do nothing but really focus on this job, which is, I'm glad to be able to do it, but that's really hard to not have any kind of balance. So that's been challenging for me. Again, even though I'm glad I'm able to have this focus, it's hard.
Yeah, I do think in normal times, balance is what makes you better at your job too, though, right? So, but it's hard. It's a little harder right now to have that. Another question from an attendee was curious to know what makes a good leader in the nonprofit sector versus in the private sector. Have you experienced any differences?
Yeah, because the food bank's the only nonprofit I've ever worked for. My career prior to this was all in the for-profit world. And, I'll actually say, I don't think there's much difference. There really isn't. It's the same kind of skills, and I think it all starts with mission. So in some ways it's, when you work for a nonprofit, the mission's kind of already predefined for you. And in a for-profit, in some ways, shareholder return is somewhat predefined, but I think most leaders in a for-profit would tell you that's not what motivates people. And so you need to find that mission of what anchors your team together. And then I think the importance of strategy and having a plan, communicating that plan, and I think making sure that everyone in your organization understands the role that they play in driving to that mission and driving to that plan, that every role is important and needed, and it's all rolling into something, so that people, no matter what job you have, people want to feel valued, and they want to know that they matter. And I think the more then you can tie everyone's job into the overall strategy and mission is what can provide that. And I think that's true whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit.
Yeah, I think there really are so many shared tasks, skills, strategies, but I guess probably fundraising is the one thing from a nonprofit sector that stands out, right? And to be good at that is an important skill set, right?
Yeah, well, and I joke, 'cause, my world before this was in finance, and I worked for an investment group for a number of years where we were constantly being pitched ideas for new companies, and we did a lot of some small cap public companies, but we also did a lot of private equity as well. And I always said fundraising is just like investing. You got to pitch your plan. It's no different whether you're asking someone to invest in your company, or to me, fundraising is I'm asking you to invest in our nonprofit. And it's the same thing. You're trying to say, we have a great team, we have a strategy, and here's our mission, and we want you to invest in our mission. So I actually compare it to getting an investor. Makes a lot of sense. Let's open it up to questions. If you have questions, we're taking them two ways today. You can either pop them into the Q&A, or you can raise your hand, and then we would actually love to hear your voice. So please get questions in for Kristen if you have them. We also got another question from someone. How do you stay positive during this stressful time? And my follow-up question is, how do you not cry every day? Because I would cry every day. Yeah, and it's kind of been the running joke that we've been doing weekly Zoom all staff meetings, and I think I've cried at every single one of them so far. So, honestly, to me, it's hearing from our partners. They're on the front lines, and they're sharing with us their stories of what they're seeing. And more often than not, the notes we're getting are notes of gratitude. We've actually been printing off these notes as they've come in. We've been hanging them all around the warehouse, so that our staff can see them as well, to know. So our staff is reminded that there are people out there who are right by your side doing this work, and they appreciate what you're doing. And so it's the words of our partners, knowing how much we're helping them get their job done. And they're doing amazing work. I mean, another example is My Place Teen Center in Westbrook.
I love them. Yeah. I love Donna.
Should be on this. She is awesome. Talk about.
She's a juggernaut.
She is. And they're doing 1,000 dinners a week for families. They're now open to the whole public. They're not just serving youth, but she was sharing that one of the things they're doing is they're actually doing physical check-ins with all their kids, granted from six feet apart. But because she said, these kids come from challenging times in a normal economy, and now they're losing some of the one constant in their life, which is school and the My Place Teen Center. And she said, so we're just going around as we give the food out, and also just letting them know, hey, we care about you, and just how important that is. And the fact that there are people out there doing that every single day, that's what keeps me positive, is Donna and her team.
Yeah, that's so true. She's tremendous. I'm so happy to hear about that. All right, I'm going to pull some questions out of the Q&A tab for you. This one's from Lisa Whited. I'm involved with a group who works with immigrants and refugees around public education, and some folks have expressed a desire for culturally appropriate foods. Do you have relationships with smaller community groups and a way during the pandemic to distribute culturally appropriate foods? So
that is a great question. And I will say that in the past few weeks, we have not given that enough attention. Fortunately, I had several of my staff reach out. Actually, it was just yesterday, so this is great timing, saying, I know we're trying to do kind of, we're trying to cover the 80% here, and we understand, but we really need to be paying more attention to this. And so we decided this morning, we actually talked about it this morning, and we're going to allocate direct funding to partners who are serving a New Mainer community, so that they have money to go and buy those culturally appropriate foods. We are not able. We don't think it makes sense for the food bank to do it, because again, we're buying it by the tractor trailer load, and there are more different programs need different kinds of food. So we think what would be most efficient is we're just going to give direct cash to these partners so that they can go and purchase the foods that they need for their communities. So so we're on it now. We are a little late, to be honest, in responding, but I'm glad to know we're doing something now, and hopefully can get some assistance out there quickly.
That's great. This one comes from Richard Stark. I feel like it's a question/idea. Are there options at all supermarket checkout registers to donate to the Good Shepherd Food Bank? And if not, which retailers offer this?
So Hannaford is doing checkout donations right now to the food bank. And I believe it's at all Hannafords. I know it's at my Hannaford. I've seen it when I've gone shopping. So that's my understanding.
Great. We'd love to see it at more places, for sure, right? Are you requesting that food pantries use our gift cards to buy in bulk from our local Hannaford stores? Are they prepared? The shelves here at our local store are not stocked.
Yeah. So what we're telling our partners is you can do whatever you'd like with those gift cards. So if you'd like to go and buy food yourself for your partner, for the people you serve, absolutely. If you want to just give the cards out directly to patrons for them to go and get their own. Also, if you have people who they don't feel safe going to the grocery store, they can give those cards to anyone to go shopping on their behalf. So it's really whatever works for you. We're trying to be as flexible as possible, knowing that you guys are juggling a lot. Hopefully, I know, I feel like the grocery stores have been getting better over the past 2 weeks. So just try going at different times. Sometimes first thing in the morning is better. You can even, I would also say, call the Hannaford. If you do want to go and do bulk purchasing for your food pantry using these cards, I'd call the store manager, tell them what you're trying to do, and see if they can tell you a good time to come in. And also that they'll accommodate like you can only buy 2 of this, 2 of that, to see if they'll give you an exception and let them know you're buying for the food pantry.
Great. Yeah. And it's nice that you're giving them the options to really manage it as they see fit, right? So great. This is a question from Brian Shumway. Kristen, as an organizational leader in the midst of a crisis, how are you balancing the need to be present in the day-to-day problem solving with the need to be with the need to be a mid to long-term strategic leader for the organization? And how are you encouraging others in the organization to step up and grow into their capabilities as leaders? That is a great question.
That is a great question. I will say on the latter one, that has never been a challenge here. I mean, we have the most amazing staff, and they step up without ever being told. So I am very, very lucky in that regard, in that we just have fabulous staff. I remember when we were first talking with staff, when this whole thing first hit, and I was kind of trying to tell them, I know this is scary. I know you have to be here when it feels like maybe it's not safe. And our staff just kind of said, well, we're food bankers. this is what we do. And
right.
It's just It's in our DNA. So, but I will say, I think that's definitely been the biggest part of my job that has changed in the past few weeks. I normally stay at the 50,000 foot level and really always thinking kind of long term. And that has completely flipped. We're now probably 80% of my time is doing day to day, just because it's where we need to be right now. And fortunate, especially I say in those first 2 weeks, it was almost 100% day to day. What are we going to do? How are we going to prepare? Now that we kind of have a plan in place and we're executing that plan, I'm able to dedicate more time to. We're now convening a group that's meeting weekly to start thinking about what would a gradual reopening look like. Which employees do we bring back first? What do their workstations need to start to look like? So we're starting to have those conversations, and similarly starting to think about what does a gradual reopening even look like for our partners? How long will these drive-through food pantries need to be in place to give some kind of guidance to our partners? So it's definitely a tough balance, and some days I have one plan in mind and that goes out the window by 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it is hard to predict what your day's going to look like these days. That's for sure. Strawberry, has anyone raised their hand to ask a question?
We have not had any hands raised for questions.
Oh.
We just have another one submitted through the Q&A.
Great. Okay. Kristen, this is from Fran Mullen. Thank you so much for your leadership through the crisis and always, Kristen and the Good Shepherd Food Bank. What are your hopes for the future?
Oh. Well, I think my biggest hope is that we as a community realize that that hunger is inexcusable. We have enough food to make sure everybody's fed, and people needing to wait in line and have that fear that they don't know where their next meal is coming from is just unacceptable. So I am hoping we can really start to do some real change when we're on the other side of this, and get more people behind that. And joining in our advocacy efforts. I think things like, even we talk about, people talk about, the importance of paid sick leave. I think people are starting to understand that's a pretty important thing.
Right.
It isn't such a crazy idea after all that everybody should have paid sick leave. So that's what I'm hoping in the long term, when we come out of this, that we recognize our economy is stronger when everybody is able to have a stable, their own finances, have stability to their own finances. That is in the best interest of all of us. So I'm certainly hopeful for that. And I know when we get on the other side of this, our network will very quickly go back to all of this, the positive progress we've been making in allowing more client choice and bringing a more holistic approach to food insecurity and working with our clients on other needs that they have. And we'll be able to kind of get back to those conversations again soon.
Great. Well, I hope everyone that's joined us today can help amplify the message and the need that the Good Shepherd Food Bank needs your ongoing support. It's a scary thought that food insecurity in Maine is projected to go from 13% to 18%. Almost 20% of the residents in our state, are suffering from food insecurity, and we have an opportunity to help. So I'm so thankful that you could be our guest today, and we want to continue to think of ways that we can support you and all of your partners in this food network throughout the state. So thank you, Kristen. Thank you for everyone that joined us today. Next week, my guest will be USM President Glenn Cummings, and we look forward to hearing from Glenn about the challenges in higher education and his outlook for what September is going to look like for students. So again, thank you, Kristen, and I hope everyone has a lovely restorative weekend. The weather looks to be in our favor tomorrow, so stay safe. Thank you.